Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. It is my third annual book review. We're going to be doing 24 books for 2024. I'm going to be telling you guys my favorite and my least favorite books that I read this past year. I have been doing this video for the past 3 years. In 2022, I set my first ever book reading goal, and ever since then, I've been tracking all the books I've read. Unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, I did not meet my reading goal, which is always such a bummer. This year, I read 39 books out of my goal of 60 books, and I read over half of my book goal, so it is a win for me. If you are a reader, if you are wanting to get into reading, I'm going to give you a breakdown of some books that I liked and I didn't like. Of course, if I were to go into very specific details of these books, we would be here all day long. I'm just going to tell you some of my favorite parts of the books, my least favorite parts, and then I'm also just going to give you a quick little rundown. I will have my GoodReads link down below. If you don't know what GoodReads is, it is a social media platform for book lovers. I will have my profile in the description if you want to follow me on there. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get into the books. I have the list of all of the books that I read. I think we're just gonna jump right into it. Grab a bev, I got my water, I got my blanket, and we're just gonna do a cozy little book chat. I of course want to start with my favorites because duh. The first book that I loved this year was The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The best way to put this book, and this is the first book in a series, I don't know how many books there are, I think like 4 or 5. It's basically like Criminal Minds meets Gossip Girl. It's basically this program called The Naturals where these prodigy kids are on a team that works for the FBI and they work on criminal cases. I don't remember the protagonist's name, but this girl ends up becoming a part of the program, and she had lost her mom, and so she had this like desire to figure out the crime that happened to her mother, and then also she just had the brain and the IQ for this program that the FBI kind of hand selects. It's very young adult, easy to read, and that's what I really liked about it. Next we have, oh I love this book, Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is one of my favorite Emily Henry books. You either love her or you don't love her, and I love her. This is such a cute book, and she just has the best just feel good rom-com books. And so this book I believe is yet again set in a small town like a lot of her books, but this one the plot is a little intricate, but it's really good. Basically we have two couples, right? One of the boyfriends and one of the girlfriends cheat with one another. You're left with another boyfriend and another girlfriend, and they have to be roommates. It's a little complicated, I just really connected to the characters. I feel like the way that they were represented in this book made them feel like real people. You know, sometimes you'll read about a character and you're like, this is not a real person. These characters felt very real and just raw and authentic. I feel like their relationship, you're entering a very like awkward relationship as people who got cheated on and living together. I feel like the way the relationship plays out is not only realistic, but it's really romantic and cute, and I really want to reread it, so I loved that one. I read a lot of Frida McFadden this year. I read so many of her books because she is a thriller mystery author, and a lot of her books are on Kindle Unlimited and they're so easy to read. But the one that I did put on my favorites list was The Teacher. This book was crazy. If I remember correctly, it is about a woman who's a teacher and her husband's also a teacher, and the woman is a really, really strict, mean teacher to this one specific student. I want to say her name was Avery. It's this teenage girl, and she is also a student of the husband. And I'll leave it at that. It did the job for me. I would recommend that one. One of my favorite authors, I keep saying that, Abby Jimenez. She has so many great books. I think I only put one of hers as my favorite. I put Part of Your World. So I want to say she has 6 books, and they kind of split in half when it comes to timelines. They are in the same universe. You technically don't have to read them in order, but it's recommended because they refer to characters, like different scenarios that happened in previous books. Oh my god. This book was so cute. I loved the couple in the book. I believe it revolved around a nurse and a man in a small town. And that is really all I remember about it. But what I do remember is these characters existing in the second book and the third book. But the way they're set up in the first book is just so pivotal for the other books and the relationships that happen and everything that kind of plays out. I just love City Girl, Small Town Boy. The next book I have is Seven Summers by Paige Toon. I loved this one. This one followed a couple, I believe it was set in England, which of course I love. The couple, I want to say the boy is in a band and he comes back every summer to be with this girl. It ends in a very interesting way, but there's so much complexity to their relationship. I also feel like it deals with so many raw and vulnerable issues and just vulnerable topics in general that you really don't read a lot about in books. Again, I love a romance book that really has hard-hitting topics in it and addresses them, but also doesn't glorify and glamorize them. And I feel like this book was really good in doing that, but also it was very emotional and there were a lot of things that happened in it, and it was also kind of depressing. It gave me Normal People vibes. I love me a good depressing book, what can I say? Another one of my favorite authors is Rachel Lynn Solomon. She came out with a sequel of her book Today, Tonight, Tomorrow with the book called Past, Present, Future. This book I bought in London and I was reading it on a bench in Hyde Park, and I will just vividly remember that. It made reading the book 10 times better. Like the vibes were just like over the moon, 10 out of 10. This book follows a couple who one of them, Neil, is living in New York and going to NYU. I don't remember the girl's name, but she is going to Emerson in Boston. The book follows their relationship being somewhat long distance, but also coming out of high school, because the first book follows a enemies to lovers plotline. So it's really cute to think back about the first book and how their relationship started and how it's evolved. We next have The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This one, another favorite author. This was a 10 out of 10, 5 stars for me. This book was about a fake relationship on a rich vacation. I love it when you have a broke girl and a rich guy pretending to be in a relationship. I will eat it up every time. Very much Succession, Gossip Girl. Family drama was family dramaing. Next we have, oh no, I gotta drink water before this. I read a lot of smut this year, okay? I was going through a reading slump and I needed something that was gonna keep me just on my toes and wanting to read more, and one of the best smut books one of the best smut books I read this year was The Deal by Elle Kennedy, okay? I have seen this cover for years at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, I'm never gonna read that. You're never gonna catch me reading that. And then I read it. It is a hockey smut romance book, and it was really good, and I really liked it, and I then proceeded to read the rest of them in 3 days. The next book I have is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. This book I first saw Olivia Rodrigo talked about it. I just have a lot of creative outlets, and I think I was in a creative slump at the time, and I've never read a self-help book for creativity. If you aren't really into self-help books, I feel like I'd recommend that one, because even if you're not a creative person, I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to it, even just like everyday life. I found it very helpful, and just, I don't know, just gave some really good pointers and insight into being a creative and exuding creative energy, and it really helped me with my channel and working on it this year. Okay, next we have The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. So I did go to my GoodReads because I wanted to see my review. I remember I left like a pretty detailed review, so I'm just gonna read that for you. I also enjoyed the lack of toxicity between the characters, and there wasn't that mid to almost ending part where they stupidly break up. Very important. Okay, we're almost to the end of my list of favorites. We're gonna get into hater mode with the least favorites, okay? Next, a book I loved is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley, I think that's how you say it. This book I thought was super cute, and I read this over the summer, and sometimes with summer books, reading them in the summer, it just hits different. I don't know. It got me out of a reading slump, and I thought it was an easy book to follow, but it also had like a little bit of a complicated relationship in it. I did know it wasn't one of my favorite books, but I did love the chemistry between the characters, and I'm remembering more and more. It is about a couple who, they are writers and they broke up. They are forced to be in a summer house to write together over the summer. Honestly, really like a book where it starts out with a couple who broke up and kind of gets back together. The author can, if done correctly, I'm not a writer, okay? I don't know, I just want to put that out there. I'm not a writer. From, you know, the author's perspective, the author can write about, you know, the different complications of a relationship and what led to their breakup, and then I feel like that makes the love of them getting back together 10 times stronger. Next I have X's and O's by Amy Leah. This book was really cute. I remember it was about a nurse who also does social media, which I don't love when the main protagonist and the girl protagonist is a social media influencer. I don't like reading about that in books. Maybe it's because I technically am one and I don't like hearing about her making TikToks and YouTube videos. I don't know. That's just maybe a me thing. I believe she was a nurse and she lives in Boston, and I love a book that's based in Boston. I think I thought of the male protagonist who's a firefighter as Travis Kelce, and I don't know why, it just like, it fit and I really liked it. You know, forced proximity, roommates to lovers. I love that trope. That's a really good trope that's present in this book. She basically embarks on this mission to go through all her exes and figure out why they broke up. And if that was me, I've never had an ex-boyfriend or a boyfriend, but you got balls. You got balls to be doing that. I don't think I ever could. Shout out to you, girl. She did it, and then she ends up with the roommate. And it's really cute. We have another smut book. This book I read in 4 hours because I was so hooked, and it was another hockey smut. This book was called Rival Darling by Alexandra Moody. I saw this on TikTok. I honestly think TikTok helps me read books because I will see like these slides of pictures and it explains this a little part of a relationship, and then it's like, oh, here's the book. And that is what happened with this book. That's why I read it. I think it's about a girl who moves to a new town, or maybe she doesn't move to a new town. I believe it's about a girl and she's dating this guy on her hockey team, but then she falls for the guy on the rival hockey team. And man, oh man, did that hit so good. I think the thing I like about these really cheesy hockey high school romance smut books is the fact that I never got to have that, and I just love relationships like the nerdy, shy, different girl and the jock. I don't know, there's something about it. And also the 3 sports, the trifecta of sports that I really wanted a boyfriend growing up was hockey, ice hockey, oh my god, lacrosse because Mr. Styles in Teen Wolf, and then I want to say football or soccer. I think soccer. I liked soccer. So there you have it, folks. It was another good, easy, cringy, cheesy smut book that I thoroughly enjoyed. The last book that I liked this year, this is a book that I saw in a bookstore and I couldn't get my mind off of it, and it was called A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This girl is driving to this retreat with her friends, and her car breaks down, and it's like rainy and there's like a storm, and her car breaks down in this town from her favorite book series. All the people in the books are there. It's basically like she fell into this book. You'd think it's gonna be like a little magical whimsy, and while it is, it's kind of giving like almost even like Truman Show in a way. I thought it was really cute. Of course there was the hot small town guy who owns a coffee shop or a bookstore or something like that. I forgot. I think he owns a bookstore. He owns a bookstore. She stays in his loft with his cat. Their relationship is really adorable. Different than any other romance book I've read. It was very ornate compared to the romance books I read. If you have made it to this point in the video, go you. We are getting ready to talk about my least favorite books. Okay, first off, I'm not trying to bash the authors. I'm not capable of writing my own book. Fortunately, when I don't like a book, I really don't like a book. So the first book we have is, this is so sad I'm having this on this list, and that is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Oh, Lynn Painter! This is a sequel of my favorite book, better than the movies. Did we have to make a sequel? No, because it broke my heart, because they break up. And I did say this earlier, how I love when books follow a couple who's broken up getting back together, but this couple, no. This couple, no. I didn't like the way it played out. It ruined the first book for me. I'm sorry, it did. I'm gonna try my best to just have that as a standalone book in my head, but the second book was not necessary. I did not love it. We have The Idea of You by Robin, or Robin. I think it's Robin. I don't think it's Robin. Robin Lane. Okay, guys. The Idea of You. Let's talk about it. So this book was turned into a movie this year with Nicholas Galitzine and Anne Hathaway. The movie was okay. That's besides the point. The movie made so many changes from the book, which were good, but also completely changed the book. That's my biggest pet peeve. The book has so much cringe scenes that made me very uncomfortable. The fact of the matter is the movie follows a 24-year-old lead singer in a boy band, kind of like One Direction, and a mom of a fan, and there's a whole different scenario in the movie. He is 4 years younger in the book, which I feel like makes the biggest difference in the world, because there's so many jokes basically hint at him being young and him being like still like a boy, and like he can't even drink and stuff like that, and I just think it was really inappropriate. That's just me. Next book, I read this. I think it was like my first book of the year. This is Something Blue by Emily Giffin. I will not lie. Something Borrowed by Emily Giffin is on my least favorites for last year. This book, oh my god, had literally the most toxic protagonist, and I only read it because I was curious and like I wanted to know what happened. This protagonist in the first book is just toxic, a homewrecker. She cheats on her best friend with her fiance and just a lot of things, and so she moves to London for a fresh start because she gets pregnant, and then she ends up with this character from the first book, which I was like, what? It just didn't make sense, and a lot of the OG fans of the book and the movie were like, why did the writer make these characters end up together? It just was trying to give a happy ending to this like bad character who was really selfish. It was really hard reading this book knowing everything the character did before. I just wanted to read it because I was curious, but no. We have another Rachel Lynn Solomon book. We have Weather Girl. I was so sad about this book because when you read a book from your favorite author, you of course go in thinking you're gonna love it and it's gonna be great. This book I was just not a fan of. I didn't love the relationship. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but a lot of her books follow the same exact protagonist with similar struggles and like different scenarios, I guess. I don't know. It is, yeah, about this weather girl, and then I think she ends up with the sports reporter or someone in the news station, and I think they get together because they have two bosses who are producers who were a married couple. They are on a break or they split up, so they were trying to get them back together. It was giving Set It Up, the Netflix movie, but not very good. I have another Freida McFadden book. We have The Housemaid is Watching. This is a sequel. No, this is in the trilogy, The Housemaid series. The Housemaid was great. The second Housemaid book, also great. The third one, not so great. Honestly saw every plot point coming, which either Freida McFadden books surprise me and come out of thin air, or they are so predictable, or then just confusing. I remember finishing it and I was like, that was it, like that was the plot. Next we have Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Kroll. This was one of my first books I read this year. I just read it because I wanted to watch the Netflix movie, which because I didn't like the book, I never watched the movie. Halfway through the book, it got super serious very fast and it kind of made me put it down. I do remember that part, and it kind of just made the book immediately halt. I also don't love the ending, and I felt unfulfilled, and I hate feeling unfulfilled after reading a book. It's not the author's fault, it's, you know, just my personal perspective and my opinion. We next have The St. Ambrose School for Girls by Jessica Ward. I think I read these back to back, and so maybe I had a little bit of animosity from Luckiest Girl Alive, so I'll redo my review for this one. This book wasn't my favorite. I got really excited because of the mystery rich mean girls boarding school aspect, but I think it had a off-putting unreliable narrator, which is one of my biggest pet peeves in a book. When it gets into her serious mental illnesses, I knew the events in the book would be distorted because they were from her POV, but I also don't know how much I love a extremely negative narrator, if like that makes any sense. I'm glad I kept reading it because I was curious. I didn't love it. Okay, next I have Josh and Hazel's Guide to Dating by Christina Lauren. I feel like the character development was extremely rushed. You know what? It got me out of a reading slump, and that's what it did for me, but I didn't love the couple in it. I hate when relationships in books are super rushed. That's exactly what happened with this book, so wasn't my favorite. We have two more books left. Next book we have is The Score by Elle Kennedy. The most cringy. The dialogue was just unbearable. I remember like not being able to get through it. I don't know if it's because I read them so back to back, but then I was like, no. I looked back, I was like, the language and the lingo was just, it was just so 2015. I didn't like that book. We have made it to our last book in this video, called My Fault. This book series is currently being made into multiple movies on Amazon, but in Spanish. So the books are My Fault, Your Fault, our fault. They're being made into movies that take place in Spain. So the books take place in Malibu, and it is about this girl who is from Canada, who is just like a high school student, and her mom marries this rich man in Malibu to go and live there, and he has like a 22-year-old son, and they end up in a relationship, and there's a lot of smut involved. They have a lot of very interesting plot points and dynamics in this book series. There was so much bonkers in that book. That's not even proper grammar. That book was straight up bonkers, okay? The things that happen in that book, like, I don't know if anyone has seen the 50 Shades of Grey movies. Like, the third one was crazy, and that's how I feel about this book. Like, it was crazy, and then the way it ends, it's like 20 years later, everything is like perfect sunshine, lollipop, rainbows. Out of all the books, the third one was like the cheesiest, a little bit cringy. I don't know, it's because I read them back to back. I did watch the first Netflix movie. The second one just came out, and I'm excited about the third one. Like, I'm still gonna watch the movies and stuff, but that book series was something else. Just complex for like a little smut book. The smut books have the most insane plot points, I swear to you. I don't know how these authors come up with these book plots, but it's wild. Those are the 24 books out of 39 books that I read in 2024. Those were my favorites and my least favorite. The best and the worst of the books I read this year. I love making this video because I love to tell you my honest thoughts about all these books. So much fun to post this video to kind of have a documentation of the books I read. It's really cool to be able to look back on the books that I liked in each year. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I post new videos every Sunday, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Bye!
Thanks for watching. Bye.